Brooklyn, New York studios alongside David Rawnsley, the Vice President of Player Personnel for Perfect Game. My name is Darren Sutton, and David, your work takes us down on the farm. Perfect Game's down on the farm. The goal in this show is to take a look back while we look ahead. You're going to select some of the top players from each major league team. You're going to tell their backstory. You're kind of the prequel to the preview of who these players are. What led you, besides your 3 decades plus in scouting, to want to put these together a couple of years back?
Well, we all follow Major League Baseball, Darren, and nowadays we know who the top prospects are, but there's that valley almost between when they're ranked out of high school and they're PG All-Americans, or the exact opposite of PG All-Americans, and when they become these Major League Baseball players. And following the whole history and trajectory is something I find fascinating and feel privileged that we get to talk about and put the spotlight on these players.
Let me be clear. This is his work. I'm just kind of keeping the train on the tracks. He's an author. He's going to be putting out several good books in the future. This is the book that we're working with now. Let's start with the Baltimore Orioles, and let's start with Patrick Riley. Vanderbilt for 3 years, big strikeout numbers at Vanderbilt, a young man out of Freehold, New Jersey, not too far from here, at least not too far. Who was he then, and who is he becoming?
Well, I don't know whether you can count New Jersey as a Northeast, anymore, but Riley is the classic Northeast guy, big and strong, threw hard at a pretty young age, was up to 96, I believe, in Jupiter as a senior. But I liken him, and this is something the Orioles fans can think about, to a Todd Jones. I was fortunate enough when I was working with the Houston Astros, we drafted Todd Jones, who threw exceptionally hard at that age. Had his 3 years of college, didn't have the command, but we developed him as a starter in the minor leagues with the reality that he was going to be a reliever in the big leagues. And I think that's the track that Patrick Riley's on. He had a great year in Double-A last year with the Orioles. Didn't throw enough strikes to really project him as a starter, but he's got that big-time stuff, mid to upper 90s, the power slider that just fits so well in the bullpen. You could see that back when he was 16, 17. You definitely saw it at Vanderbilt, and I think that's what if you're an Oriole fan, you're going to get out of Patrick Riley.
What's fun about our Perfect Game journey and the way that perfectgame.org website gathers the history of these athletes, the player profiles, I see him throwing 82 miles an hour for Baseball U in 2017, throwing 96 2 years later against the elite squad, and it's very interesting. You guys had him 50th overall right-handed pitcher. And that's $455,000 well spent as far as a bonus goes, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, that's an outstanding thing. And you mentioned the progression from 82 to 96 over 2 years. That is a fascinating thing. I think scouts are more and more aware of the whole development situation. If you have a kid who's throwing 90, 92 as a 15-year-old and he hasn't improved by the time he's a 17-year-old, you can't project more improvement. But when you see the classic curve where you're adding velocity, not only to your fastball, but your secondary pitches, that's a great sign in development. And Riley's even added velocity since he was at Vanderbilt.
Christian Campbell, oh, I remember him. Let's talk about the Boston Red Sox as we page turn on your book. I can remember Christian with the East Cobb Astros. He made his choice to go to Georgia Tech. There's a lot I could say about him, but I'm going to pause now and let you say your memories first.
Well, the first thing I want to say is Boston Red Sox fans, you probably have more upper-level prospects, elite-type upper-level prospects than any other organization. When I went to pick Christian Campbell for this, I could have picked Roman Anthony. I could have picked Marcelo Mayer, all of whom have huge perfect game backgrounds. Mikey Romero as well. All great perfect game backgrounds, and it's just a loaded system at the top, and that bodes very well. They're all position players too. That's obviously something the Red Sox thought about. But I picked Campbell because he's really the surprise on this. He wasn't a first-round pick. He wasn't a top 100 guy out of high school. He wasn't a PG All-American, but he has developed so much in the Red Sox system over the last few years after being a fourth-rounder that he's really positioned himself perhaps to be the guy who contributes in the big leagues next year. And looking back to where he was at Walton High School and the East Cobb Astros, I think we always knew it was there. He was 6'3", 180, he had such smooth athletic actions. He was fun to play, but you always, as a scout, were looking for more. You're looking for the ability to impact the ball more than just handle the bat at his size. You're looking for a little more speed. You're looking for a little more consistency at short. But it was smooth and athletic and fun to watch. and we're seeing the results of that now.
Another under $1.5 million bonus and 492,000. There's a couple things I want to throw out quickly, and you pick the ones you want to talk about. He grew up. He redshirted. To your point, he redshirted his first year at Tech, but then the Northwoods League. He goes to the Northwoods League, plays 58 games. That's like a full-blown schedule. That's a 469 on base. Then he's ready to dominate at Georgia Tech. The other thing that I find interesting is this year the power came, as you mentioned, 21 home runs. And then the last thing, and maybe you could pick this one if you don't mind. Shortstop, 298 innings defensively. Second base, 310 innings defensively. Center field, 204 innings defensively all this year. The versatility, the athleticism, he did all that this year defensively.
Yeah, and it's obviously a plan the Red Sox have, and I think that's why he might be the first guy from that group that's in the upper minors now, because he's had that second base experience, and that's where the biggest hole, I think, in the Red Sox whole depth chart is now. Yeah, Marcelo Mayo's a future all-star shortstop, but yeah, Trevor Story's not going anywhere there. You know, their center fielders amongst the best in baseball, but they've groomed Christian Campbell to play a lot of different spots. I think he might end up being a second baseman, at least in the near term, but having that athletic versatility speaks so well to him. I want to add one more thing from your history there. I've got so much respect for a player who ends up in the top, 125th in the rankings, and will redshirt his freshman year. And especially now with the NIL and the transfer portal and stuff, where you're basically going to the highest bidder and moving around, for a kid of his level, played for the East Cobb Astros, PG National Showcase, to redshirt his freshman year and get better and make that investment in yourself, I think speaks well of the young man, and it's something I respect very much.
The prospect of the year, certainly for Baseball America and The Athletic. He played up in Jupiter, did well. His dad, Kenneth, played football at Tennessee. Now, we're in our Brooklyn studios. One of the hometown teams is the New York Yankees. And we knew through the pandemic, it was a struggle for all athletes through the pandemic, but one guy who managed to grab our attention and going to national, that was in Birmingham, Alabama, and Hoover, was Brock Selvage. Now, I know this left-hander because I'm in Arizona, and everyone knew him in Hamilton. So what do you recall about Brock battling through the pandemic, getting time in front of PG scouts, and how has he evolved?
Well, he's evolved because he's a young man. When he started at Hamilton High School as a 145-pound freshman throwing 75, 78, he was not on the prospect map. And it would be interesting, you did such a great job talking to kids about what they did during the pandemic to get stronger and such. I'd be interested to go back into the Darren Sutton files and see what Brock Selvage said, because he really got stronger between his freshman and junior year. Went from 6 foot 145 to 6'3", 208. Went from 75 to 93 in 2 or 3 years, and followed that curve of improvement. But by the time he was at the National Showcase PG All-American, he had both the velocity as a lefty, touching 93, 94, but he also had command of 3 pitches. He'd obviously been very well coached at Hamilton, had very, very good mechanics. I thought his fastball played a little light, even though it was 93, 94, but it was a good mid-80s true slider. And I'm sure the Yankees have taken every little piece, whether it's adding more fastball life, maybe adding different variations on the slider. He always had a good changeup. It's a classic starter package, and he's thrown very well. Advanced, quite frankly, faster than I thought he would out of high school in the Yankees system.
Good coaches along the way. Mike Woods, the coach at Hamilton. John Pano coaches CBA, the great travel team, and he joined them as well. Pandemic, we struggled to get baseball going, but he went to Hoover through 94 there, 92 at the PG All-American. What I find is interesting this year, and I'd love your thoughts on his growth, is 3 runs or less allowed in 12 of his 16 starts this year. That's putting up your hand and saying, hey guys in the Bronx, I'm almost ready. Yeah,
and he did that in Double-A. He missed the last 6 weeks of the season with a minor injury, so he didn't get to build on that, or we might even be hearing more about Selvage. But the Yankees don't have a lot of upper-level pitching in their system, and he really stands out as a guy if he gets off to a good start this year. And I know the Yankees are going to do what they can to have 5, 6, 7 established major league starters for that staff and that spotlight, but he's the guy that you're likely to see or potentially see take the big step early in the year and maybe make some big league noise later.
Well, there's no doubt. The team that beat them in the World Series tried out a lot of Brock Selvages last year throughout the season. There were big names in the end. Walker Buehler was a big part of it. Yamamoto was a big part of it. But there were 5 or 6 Brock Selvages that the Dodgers used to get them through the year. So it's going to be interesting. All right. From the New York Yankees, we turn the page and talk about, gosh, this guy is so intriguing. Tampa Bay Rays, Chandler Simpson, stolen base machine, like stolen base machine. There's all kinds of numbers I'll give you, but this is a young man. Georgia Bombers, his travel team, out of Atlanta, Georgia, goes to Georgia Tech, goes to UAB. What do you remember about him way back in high school, and then how did he kind of keep growing? We'll give you the stolen base numbers, 100 plus this last year.
Well, first of all, Chandler Simpson was not a prospect out of high school. He could do one thing, obvious at this point, run, but he went to a perfect game showcase, the Sunshine Showcase, and got a PG grade of 8. 8 basically means you can go to a small college, son, you have some baseball skill, but we're not talking about ranking you anywhere. You know, people who go to the perfect game national get 9s or 10s, PG All-Americans or 10s. Chandler Simpson was only an 8 going into his senior year, so he's dramatically improved. And he was a middle infielder then, and now he's a full-time center fielder. But the way his speed game has evolved has just been incredible. He started off, as you mentioned, at Alabama Birmingham for 2 years, did great in summer ball, and got that opportunity to play at Georgia Tech for everybody to see him against SEC pitching or an ACC pitching, that level of pitching. And he's done what he has since then. It's incredible. He has such a unique level of talent. He's the closest thing to a Billy Hamilton that's come along since Billy Hamilton. And Billy Hamilton, you always left wanting a little more. Chandler Simpson has the speed, but he might have the better offensive ability than Hamilton ever showed.
Somebody got it right. You said it shocked you when he went in the second round, but again, Tampa Bay got it right. They have the secret book on guys. Below $1 million signing bonus. You mentioned Hamilton. He and Delino DeShields Jr., the last, and we're 12 years ago. We're in 2025 now, but going back 13 years, really, since 100 or more stolen bases. So Hamilton one, Delino DeShields the other. And you say, well, but you can't steal first base, right? I mean, he doesn't have power, but gosh, he had a 410 on base last year, 373. That year in the Northwoods League in 21 out of 420. You were talking about the summer ball year. He had 51 games in which he played. I love summer ball, by the way, as a coming of age for an athlete. He played in 51 games in the Northwoods League, stole 55 bags in 51 games.
Yeah, it's exceptional, and I'm going to credit my friend Jonathan Mayo at MLB.com for pulling this quote from a scout, and that is Chandler Simpson on the traditional 20 to 80 grading scale has 90 speed and 10 power.
Okay.
And it is what it is. Exceptional, unique speed. He's also hit 1 home run in 3 years of college baseball and has 1 home run in his minor league career. He's not going to hit for power, but he's developed such outstanding barrel skills, more walks and strikeouts every year in pro ball. And it's solid enough contact that, you know, he hit 351, I believe, this year. He gets on base at that 40% clip, and when you run like he does and you can get on base like he does, you can be an impactful big league player. And obviously defensively in center field with that speed, it's going to be a plus.
He did a PG showcase back in 17, back in the Sunshine Southeast, ran a 6.5, so good speed, but didn't blow anyone away. David talked about it. He did in 2018 Jupiter, the World Wood Bat Association World Championship, steal 7. So maybe that was a preview. Again, he got his way on. Great story. Thank you for bringing him to the table and putting him in your book. Chandler Simpson. Now, one that you had to introduce me to a little bit more is this man. He's in the Toronto Blue Jays organization, out of North Carolina, 5-star Carolina, his travel team, Jake Bloss. By the way, you guys had some of your notes on him when he was a high schooler. He did some catching at Perfect Game events, too. He's not catching anymore. How's Jake doing?
Well, Jake is probably still fairly unknown to even Blue Jays fans because he came in the Kikuchi trade from the Astros. The Astros had drafted him in, the 3rd or 4th round the previous year. So he got to the big leagues literally within a year. But his story goes back all the way to high school, and I guarantee you Jake Bloss, at 17 years old when he graduated from high school, was very young for his class, was not thinking about Major League Baseball. He went to Lafayette University for 2 years, posted ERAs in the sevens and eights, and I'm sure was not thinking about being a big league baseball player when he was on his, let's say, his 20th birthday. However, he graduated from Lafayette in 3 years with a double major in math and economics. Went to Georgetown, which in all due respect to the Hoyas is not a baseball destination, to get his master's in economics. This was a completely academically motivated kid who happened to grow as a baseball player, especially after he got to Georgetown. And the Astros liked what they saw. They liked we have a 20-year-old college senior, and he got to the big leagues almost immediately after signing with the Astros. So it's a great story. And it's, you know, I said most kids, you go to a PG event, you talk to all these players, they're thinking, yeah, I want to play in the big leagues. I bet you Jake Bloss wasn't thinking about that when he was a teenager. He was academically oriented. Yeah, he hit 91 at a PG tournament once, but he wasn't that level of pitcher until he got better, and it's a great story.
Yeah, he was playing in the 17U WWBA in the summertime back in 19. He did hit 91. He was playing for Five Star, one of their five-star teams, an offshoot there, the Carolina team. Couple of interesting notes. You guys had him ranked 698 amongst right-handed pitchers in 2019. Not only did he go there just to play for Edwin Thompson's team at Georgetown because it was a scholarship and a great free graduate opportunity, but he goes there. Big East hated it because he was Big East Player of the Year. All the other hitters hated it. And, made his big league debut this year, had 3 starts. His big league debut against Baltimore on the 21st of June, went 3 innings, gave up 2 runs in a fun 14-11 victory. But Jake Bloss is an incredible name. The East, well done. Thank you very much for bringing all these guys to light, man. And hopefully these guys will be in your upcoming book here pretty soon. In a couple of years that you're going to drop.
A couple of them. Let's see how they do in the big leagues. I root for every player to get to the big leagues and have a great career. Some of these guys maybe more than others.
All right, there is a guy that grew up in the East. Please promise me that he's now out West. Please promise me you'll have, when you do release your book, some Mookie Betts anecdotes, yes?
Oh, yes, there will definitely be Mookie Betts anecdotes.
Outstanding stuff. Christian Campbell, multi-position player like Mookie Betts coming through the Red Sox. So that's what David does. Thanks for watching this one. All these great stories are available of these athletes on perfectgame.org. David's Perfect Game down on the farm segment. Until then, from our Brooklyn studios, now you know a little bit about who they were before who they're becoming on Perfect Games down on the farm segment.